The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, but I knew it was negative before I even looked. I'd been off birth control for 6 months trying to get pregnant with my husband Ryan, and month after month the test came back negative. This time was no different, but as I stared at the white plastic stick, an idea formed in my mind that would change everything. What if I told Ryan I was pregnant anyway? What if I could make him believe we were finally going to have the baby he wanted so desperately? I'd watched Ryan's face fall every month when I told him the test was negative. We'd been married for 3 years, and he talked constantly about starting a family, showing me cribs online, discussing baby names over dinner, planning our future around children that never came. The disappointment was eating away at our marriage, and I could feel him pulling away from me with each failed attempt. But now, holding this negative test, I saw an opportunity to give him what he wanted, at least temporarily. Ryan. I called from the bathroom, injecting excitement into my voice. Can you come here for a second? He appeared in the doorway instantly, hope written across his face the way it had been every month for 6 months. I held up the pregnancy test, smiling broadly. We're having a baby. The test was negative, but in the dim bathroom lighting he couldn't see the lines clearly. His reaction was everything I'd hoped for and more. Are you serious? He whispered, taking the test from my hands and squinting at it. Is that really positive? I nodded, tears forming in my eyes, though not from joy. We're going to be parents, Ryan. Finally. He swept me up in his arms, spinning me around the small bathroom, his laughter filling the space. I can't believe it. We're actually having a baby. When do you think you conceived? How far along are you? I did quick mental calculations. I think I'm about 4 weeks along, I said, which would put my due date in early March, giving me 9 months to figure out what to do next. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the long-term consequences. I was just thinking about the happiness on Ryan's face and how I could keep it there. We should call the doctor tomorrow and schedule an appointment. That night, Ryan couldn't stop talking about the baby. He pulled up pregnancy websites on his laptop, reading about fetal development at 4 weeks, discussing which bedroom would become the nursery, and texting his family with the good news. I lay beside him, watching his excitement and realizing I'd committed to something far more complicated than a simple lie. I was going to have to fake an entire pregnancy. The next morning, I called my gynecologist's office and scheduled an appointment for the following week. When the receptionist asked if this was for a pregnancy confirmation, I said yes, knowing I'd have to cancel or reschedule before the actual appointment. Ryan insisted on coming with me, his eagerness to be involved touching and terrifying at the same time. I spent the week researching pregnancy symptoms and early development, preparing for questions he might ask. The appointment presented my first major challenge. I couldn't actually see a doctor without the truth coming out, so I called the morning of our appointment and told Ryan I was experiencing some cramping. The nurse said it's probably normal, but they want me to come in alone for the first appointment, I explained. Something about reducing stress during the early examination. He was disappointed but understanding, offering to drive me and wait in the car. Instead of going to the doctor's office, I drove to a coffee shop across town and sat there for 2 hours, timing my return to match what a real appointment would take. I stopped at a pharmacy on the way home and bought prenatal vitamins, pregnancy books, and morning sickness remedies. When I returned, Ryan was waiting anxiously. How did it go? Is everything okay? Did you hear the heartbeat? Everything's perfect, I told him, showing him the prenatal vitamins. The doctor confirmed I'm about 5 weeks along now. We'll be able to hear the heartbeat at the next appointment. I'd researched enough to know that heartbeats typically weren't detectable until around 8 weeks, buying me more time to figure out my next move. Ryan hugged me carefully, as if I were made of glass, already treating me like a pregnant woman. Over the following weeks, I perfected my performance. I researched pregnancy symptoms obsessively and began exhibiting them on schedule. Morning sickness at 6 weeks, which meant I spent mornings in the bathroom making retching sounds and declining breakfast. Food aversions that had me pushing away formerly favorite meals. Fatigue that required afternoon naps and early bedtimes. Ryan documented everything, taking photos of me with prenatal vitamins and downloading pregnancy tracking apps. The 8-week appointment presented another obstacle. Ryan expected to hear the heartbeat, and I needed ultrasound photos to maintain the illusion. I spent hours online researching how to fake these things, eventually finding websites where people sold fake ultrasound images for pranks or movie props. I ordered several, having them customized with my name and the appropriate dates. The quality was surprisingly good, indistinguishable from real ultrasounds to someone who wasn't a medical professional. "I want to frame these," Ryan said when I showed him the first ultrasound photos. Our baby's first pictures. He studied them carefully, pointing out what he thought looked like hands and feet. The images were actually from an 8-week pregnancy, medically accurate and convincing. I felt a stab of guilt watching his genuine excitement over fake photos, but I was too deep into the deception to consider stopping. I created an elaborate system for managing the fake appointments. I would leave the house at the scheduled time, spend a couple of hours at various locations, then return with updated ultrasound photos and pregnancy progress reports. I downloaded medical terminology and pregnancy milestone information, preparing detailed reports about our baby's development that impressed Ryan with their thoroughness. He never questioned why he couldn't come to appointments, accepting my explanations about clinic policies and insurance requirements. The second trimester brought new challenges. I needed to show physical signs of pregnancy, which meant investing in a fake pregnancy belly and gradually increasing its size over time. The prosthetic was surprisingly realistic, and Ryan never questioned the changes in my body. I wore loose clothing when possible and had several believable explanations ready for why I looked smaller or larger than expected on any given day. Ryan's family was thrilled about the pregnancy, calling regularly to check on my progress and offering advice about everything from cribs to childbirth classes. His mother wanted to throw me a baby shower. His sister kept sending pregnancy books, and his father had already started building a rocking chair for the nursery. The web of people involved in our fake pregnancy was growing larger and more complicated every week. At 20 weeks, Ryan expected to learn the baby's gender. I prepared for this by ordering ultrasound images that clearly showed female anatomy. "It's a girl," I announced after my fake appointment, watching his face light up with joy. "The doctor said she's developing perfectly. All her organs look healthy, and she's measuring exactly where she should be for 20 weeks. Ryan immediately started suggesting names, talking about daddy-daughter dances and teaching her to ride a bike. The nursery became Ryan's obsession. He spent weekends painting it a soft yellow color we'd chosen together, assembling furniture he'd carefully researched, and creating a reading corner where he planned to tell bedtime stories. I helped him hang decorations and organize baby clothes that well-meaning relatives had started sending. Standing in that perfect nursery surrounded by cribs and mobiles and tiny clothes, the reality of what I was doing hit me full force. I was approaching the third trimester, and the deception was becoming harder to maintain. Ryan wanted to feel the baby kick, attend childbirth classes, and tour the hospital where I would supposedly deliver. I had explanations for why the baby wasn't very active, reasons why we should wait on classes until closer to my due date, and excuses for postponing hospital tours. But I could see he was getting frustrated with my evasiveness about things he considered important. The baby shower was scheduled for my 32nd week, and canceling it would have raised too many questions. Ryan's mother had invited 40 people, ordered a cake, and planned games around our expected daughter. I sat through 3 hours of presents, advice, and celebration, accepting gifts for a baby that didn't exist while making conversation about pregnancy experiences I'd never had. The guilt was overwhelming, but I couldn't figure out how to end the deception without losing everything. As my fake due date approached, panic set in. I'd spent 9 months perfecting this lie, but I couldn't fake actually having a baby. I couldn't show up at the hospital and deliver a child that didn't exist. Ryan was making arrangements to take paternity leave. His family was planning to visit after the birth, and I'd run out of ways to postpone the inevitable truth. 3 days before my due date, I made a decision. I would tell Ryan I was having contractions and go to the hospital, where I would claim to miscarry. It would be devastating, but it would end the deception and give us both a chance to grieve and move forward. I spent hours researching miscarriage stories, preparing for the performance of my life. "Ryan," I said on Thursday morning, exactly 2 days before my supposed due date, "I think I'm having contractions. They started about an hour ago, and they're getting stronger." He immediately went into delivery mode, grabbing the hospital bag we'd packed weeks earlier, calling the doctor's office and helping me to the car. "This is it," he said, his voice shaking with excitement. We're about to meet our daughter. The drive to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Ryan kept asking about my pain levels and timing my fake contractions while I tried to figure out exactly how I would stage a miscarriage convincing enough to end this charade. When we arrived at the emergency entrance, he helped me out of the car as if I were actually in labor, his hands gentle and protective. "My wife is in labor," he told the triage nurse. "This is her first baby, and the contractions are about 5 minutes apart." The nurse looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to confirm his statement. I opened my mouth to begin the lie that would finally end this nightmare, but the words wouldn't come. Looking at Ryan's face, seeing his excitement and love and complete trust in me, I couldn't do it anymore. "Actually," I said quietly, "I'm not in labor. I'm not even pregnant. I haven't been pregnant this whole time." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language, while the nurse looked confused and concerned. "I faked the pregnancy," I continued, "for 9 months. The ultrasounds were fake, the appointments were fake, everything was fake." Ryan's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally devastation. "What are you talking about?" he whispered. "You've been pregnant for 9 months. We have ultrasound photos. You've been to appointments. The nursery." He trailed off as the implications hit him. "Are you telling me none of it was real? Our baby isn't real." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't get pregnant. Month after month the tests were negative and I could see how disappointed you were. When I got another negative test 9 months ago, I just told you it was positive instead. I thought I could figure out what to do later, but it got out of control. The nurse had stepped back, clearly uncomfortable with the personal nature of our conversation. 9 months, Ryan repeated, his voice hollow. "You lied to me for 9 months. You let me build a nursery, buy baby clothes, plan my entire future around a child that doesn't exist." His hands were shaking as he processed what I'd told him. "My family threw you a baby shower. My mother knitted blankets. My father built a crib. How could you do this to all of us?" I tried to explain about the pressure I felt, about how desperate I was to make him happy, about how the lie had grown too big to stop. But nothing I said could justify what I'd done. I'd stolen 9 months of his life, manipulated his emotions, and destroyed the trust that had taken years to build. The look in his eyes was something I'd never seen before. Complete betrayal mixed with disgust. "I can't even look at you right now," he said finally. "I need to go home and figure out how to tell my family that the grandchild they've been preparing for doesn't exist. That the daughter-in-law they trusted has been lying to them for 9 months. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving me standing alone in the emergency room of a hospital where I'd planned to fake a miscarriage. I drove home to the house we'd shared for 3 years. The house with a perfect nursery full of furniture and clothes and toys for a baby that had never existed. Ryan's car wasn't in the driveway when I arrived, and I realized he probably couldn't bear to come home yet. I sat in the nursery surrounded by evidence of my 9-month deception, and tried to figure out how to rebuild a life I'd systematically destroyed. The next few days were a blur of difficult conversations and painful revelations. Ryan moved in with his brother temporarily, unable to be in the same house with me. His family was devastated, not just by the fake pregnancy, but by the realization that I'd manipulated them for months. The baby shower gifts had to be returned, the nursery had to be dismantled, and the future we'd planned together had to be completely reimagined. Ryan filed for divorce 3 weeks after my fake due date. He cited irreconcilable differences, but we both knew the real reason was that trust, once broken so completely, could never be repaired. I'd convinced myself I was protecting our marriage by giving him the baby he wanted, but I'd actually destroyed it by lying about the most fundamental thing a married couple could share. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Ryan got the house, since he couldn't bear the thought of me living in the place where we'd planned for our fake daughter. I moved across the country, starting over in a city where no one knew about the 9 months I'd spent pretending to be pregnant. I started therapy, trying to understand what had driven me to such elaborate deception, and how I could prevent myself from making similar choices in the future. 2 years after my fake due date, I received an unexpected email from Ryan. He was remarried to someone he'd met at work, and they were expecting their first child. I wanted you to know that I forgive you, he wrote. What you did was wrong, but holding on to anger wasn't helping me heal. I hope you found a way to be honest with yourself and whoever you're with now. Everyone deserves a chance to start over. I'm still single, still working on becoming someone who can be trusted with another person's heart. The 9 months I spent faking pregnancy taught me that love built on lies isn't love at all. It's manipulation disguised as affection. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals come from people who convince themselves they're protecting the ones they love. I didn't lose a baby during those 9 months. I lost something far more important. The ability to be trusted by someone who deserved honesty.